Cool. Actually, thank you all of you for taking the time to join our webinar. Today's webinar is about merger and acquisition. Today, we are going to talk about how Alkira as a solution can help you accelerate your merger or acquisition initiative from a network connectivity perspective, providing you a unified solution to deliver business outcome. My name is Misbah Rehman, and I'm a VP of Product Management and Compliance. And with me, I have Syed Ali. Syed, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me on the show, Misbah. I lead the SC team globally here at Alkira. Looking forward to going into nice details on M&A with Alkira.
Cool. So we kept the agenda pretty simple and straightforward, but I just want to quickly go over it so that while we are talking about the content, you have an idea on how we wanted this slide deck to flow through or this webinar to flow through. So we are going to cover the business and technical challenges. We will talk about the enterprise network connectivity landscape, what are the different options that the enterprise has in terms of connectivity today, what are the integration challenges when they want to bring together the two companies in case of an acquisition or a merger. We not only like to talk about just about the problems, we also like to talk about the solution. So how Alkira can provide you the solution that you need for merger and acquisition. And then in the end, the proof is in the pudding. And what better way to present that proof outside of like other than telling you our successful customer case studies. So there are our production customers who have been using our solution to meet their timelines in terms of merger and acquisition to integrate the two companies seamlessly. And in the end, we can open it up for Q&A, and we would encourage that if you have any questions, just keep sharing those, and in the end, we can address those. So in terms of the business challenges, all of these challenges are can be seen in isolation, but at the same time, they are very related as well. As we talk about the timely IT integration, the time to market is very critical for any merger and acquisition. Why? Because any acquisition that takes place, the chances are that they have made some commitments to their shareholders or to the market that this merger will achieve certain economic and financial benefits. And they would have some deadlines associated to it, and uh, when this merger going to reap benefits. So the first and the foremost thing for any two organization to work together is the network connectivity. So the timeline attached to meeting the business outcome is directly related to the timelines that the network needs to meet. And what happens is, since there is no unified solution when it comes to merger and acquisition, the network often becomes the bottleneck, and then you start to cut corners. You start to use one-off solution, which is directly related to increasing your integration cost. You would be paying more because you'll be using a lot of one-off solution. Every time there's a new acquisition, it becomes a one-off project. You cannot do a rinse and repeat because of a lack of unified solution. And once you are doing those one-off connectivity options, chances are you would be compromising on your visibility and control, because at this point, it's just about establishing connectivity from company A to company B. You don't even think about visibility and control at that point, because your main objective is that you want to go back to the business that the connectivity established. And once you don't have visibility and control, chances are you will have the blind spots. You won't have the tools to take care of your compliance requirement. How do you provide the evidence to your to your auditors that you are meeting your compliance requirement? So all of these in isolation are huge problems, but at the same time, they're all interrelated and it becomes a chain reaction.
I agree, especially the security and compliance specifically one is coming out to me, Misbah. That runs home for you running that in Alkira, right? But imagine the effort that we go through with security and compliance just to maintain our compliance. Imagine having to do that across multiple organizations, right? It becomes very challenging. So without a standardized approach, it becomes very difficult.
Yeah, and you need the tools. If you are integrating the company A and company B, from your perspective, these companies are isolated companies, but from an auditor perspective, now you are one big company. So they don't look at you as separate entities. So yes, this is a huge challenge. Um, and Sayed, on that point, one of the things that I want to really bring it up, because whenever we talk about merger and acquisition, it doesn't come across as one of the main functions that the IT organization are responsible for. It just everyone thinks of as something or as an afterthought that, oh yeah, maybe IT is responsible for doing merger and acquisition. But what you guys would be surprised that even Gartner recognizes it, that merger and acquisition is the biggest challenge that the enterprises and their IT organization needs to face and to navigate in a timely fashion. Integrating people, operation, information, and processes requires significant technology investments. So having a proper solution that is a repeatable solution is a real thing, is a real challenge that the enterprise are faced with. They don't understand it, but they face it day in, day out. And the lack of solution do not basically have them think that every time it has to be a one-off.
Yeah, and we'll get into our solution later, but just having it being always an afterthought on providing connectivity, you get the requirements for connecting come way later, right?
Yeah.
So then you have IT organizations trying to figure out a solution as fast, and but then they have to rely on hardware dependencies, which you'll get into, which delays things,
Yep.
and time to acquisition becomes very, very difficult. So almost every customer you talk to will say, yes, yes, tell me more, tell me more, what do you got?
Yep. Absolutely. So before we go into the challenges, the problems, let's just look at the connectivity landscape today. So every decent sized enterprise having to work with having different types of use cases from a connectivity perspective, you would end up having these type of connectivity interfaces. Customers would have SD-WAN deployed. They would have still have MPLS for like some of the financials for their critical applications, or in some cases low latency connectivity that they need. They may still be leveraging MPLS. At the same time, they may be working with different partners, or they may have a site where you may not have MPLS connectivity, or they are looking for a cheaper alternative. They may be using IPsec over internet. Then there are data centers. You can include colo in the same bracket as well. You have cloud, IaaS services, and also in this case, also you can include SaaS applications also. And then you post-pandemic, remote user is a real deal in the network. So you need ZTNA type solutions where some of the workforce may be connecting over remote connectivity, and some of the users are on-prem. And now on top of it, you layer in the layers of orchestration, monitoring, compliance. This kind of becomes the landscape for a given decent sized enterprise, and it's and we call it for this webinar company A, for instance. Now, when you go have to go through a merger and acquisition, chances are the other company will have similar type of connectivity options, similar type of interfaces.
I would
Now, if
also
you
I would
go,
also add, Ms. Ba, there's a different strategy and goal that each company wants to get to as well. That's going to be very different between the two
yeah,
companies. So now you have to combine and have a similar North Star. But
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Yeah, and at the same time, I think even though they are very similar, like if you talk about SD-WAN also,
Yep.
both of the companies may have adopted different SD-WAN solutions. So even though from an interface or from a technology perspective, it looks the same, it's very different. Two SD-WAN solutions won't be working together. You'll have to find some other way of integration.
I'm gonna
And
I'm gonna I'm gonna steal one of our peers' favorite phrase, right? That a company is just an acquisition away from being multi-cloud if they are single cloud right now, right?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, you can put cloud in the same bucket as well, right? One company could be AWS, the other could be AWS and Azure or Google. But whatever. So in the worst case, when you want to connect these company, you end up creating this spaghetti mesh of connections. This is purely from a connectivity perspective that we are trying to, and we are keeping our bar really, really low. That okay, what it takes to establish connectivity. Now, we are not even talking about how do you do the monitoring, visibility, security in these cases. And we are also talking about the most simplest case of two companies coming together. How about if you have to do it at scale? And again, it's a real thing where a company maybe and big enterprises do it all the time, where they may have to acquire not just one, two, three, four, like tens, 20 companies. What happens there? The complexity exponentially increase because every time you are doing an acquisition, this company A and B on the left hand side becomes one company. And even though you have stitched them through very temporary connections, but you may the new company that you are acquiring may still need connectivity from both of your businesses. So as you grow, as you do more acquisition, it becomes even more complex. And again, every time what we have seen enterprise, because of a lack of a unified solution, it becomes a one-off project. Every time it becomes a one-off project, like you create tiger teams, you create war rooms to take care of those acquisition. You don't need to do those. So if from a connectivity perspective, great, we talk about and all that, but just purely from a business perspective, why this is a problem.
And I think
So
as we were talking about yesterday, it's not the enterprise fault, right? There's no
yeah,
solution, right, out there. So
yeah,
it's a lot of times it's pointed solutions for every different use case. So you have point solution, point solution within an organization. Then you add another organization, and they have point solutions, point solutions. And now, how do you merge them and bring them together?
exactly. And you just keep on building your blind spots within your network. Like there's no standardization, no unification of your policies, connectivity, and all that. And a lot of these challenges that comes out of those kind of architecture, and we have covered most of them, but after explaining this, we're just reiterating those. It's not scalable every time. You should not be doing this as a one-off project. It's not, and just creating manual meshes and all that while you maintain such high standards within your own company architecture, on anything, your network practices, your operations, your security, visibility, and all that. And when it comes to just interconnecting, you just give up because you can't do any better there. Security and compliance risk, visibility and troubleshooting, time to market, and operational overhead. We covered most of it. And it's great. Like we brought up these problems, these challenges, and all that. But with those, we definitely want to cover what is the solution. So what we believe that an ideal solution that can take care of all those challenges that the enterprises are faced with has to have a unified fabric across clouds and on-prem. And you can add users here also. So you need to have one unified fabric across the board for any type of connectivity, and your connectivity should become a plug and play operation. You should have centralized segmentation and policy enforcement. Through those unified fabric, you should be create different segments, different isolated networks, and do the policy enforcement from there. It has to be instant onboarding and provisioning to achieve agility. The unified security, you need to offer the security posture and architecture the same consistent way across any of those acquisition, whether in all those acquisition that you are doing, it has to done through that unified fabric where the security is offered as well. And then you have a single pane of glass managing those so that you do not have any blind spot within your network. And then, as we talked about, all of this gives you the agility, gives you the power, and gives enable the network engineer to be the enabler of your business outcomes rather than a bottleneck in of networking.
Sounds too good to be true.
Let's talk about the solution, man.
Before actually, Misbah, you get into that, I did have a few customers who, to solve these challenges that you're listing, they ate the cost, upfront cost, and built a huge static environment for the acquisitions that they would do. They would do about 3 acquisitions a year, but instead of having to constantly build a network to keep them isolated, that acquisition, whoever the company that they were acquiring, to maintain their security. standardized. They create a static environment, but that static environment, the challenges were having to manage it, the life cycle management of the hardware, and it not being agile, right?
Yeah.
So new acquisitions or new partner, new different connectivity types would change, which meant that it couldn't be as static as they wanted to be. It then had to constantly be also evolving. So here's another network that's constantly evolving, very high upfront cost that they're having to manage and maintain. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, yeah, and let's talk about how we do it, right? So, I hope many of you have been exposed to Alkira solution, but if not, then we provide infrastructure as a service, and it's a very unique way of offering network infrastructure. So it is offered as a service where it you have the ability to manage and operate your network centrally through a centralized portal, but from a connectivity perspective, it's an extremely distributed architecture, which is absolutely critical for this day and age, from the applications, the distribution of the users across the board, and application being anywhere and everywhere, because you want to connect to the closest location from your connectivity point of presence to the users and applications. So it provides you that distributed architecture, arms you with the tools that you can build your network by yourself. These hexagons that you see in the screen are called CXPs. These are cloud exchange point. And from a merger and acquisition perspective, just think of these or this whole network as a merger and acquisition exchange, where you can deploy them anywhere in the world. Wherever there's a cloud region, these CXPs can be deployed. And as soon as you deploy CXPs in different region, they automatically connect. They build your backbone automatically. So even if it's a temporary backbone or if it's a permanent backbone, you do not need to do or wait for months and months to get your circuit up and running. Your hardware wait for your hardware to get delivered, as Syed was talking about. Everything is offered as a service. You consume it on demand. You can start slow. You can just start for the like an example could be, let's suppose you are acquiring a company. This is that company, that the new company is only in, maybe in West Coast in US. So you only deploy a CXP in that West Coast. Tomorrow you acquire another company which is in Europe. You deploy a CXP in Europe. So it's on demand, moves with your business outcomes that you are looking, or you can deploy these as per your business outcome that you are looking to achieve. And it's horizontally and vertically scalable. You can again start with 100 meg, can go up to 20 gigs and all that. So it's a full holistic network as a service. And as Syed used to always talk about it, uh, we here, what we are doing here from a connectivity perspective is the same thing what cloud service provider did to compute and storage. We are doing exactly same thing for the network connectivity. We are providing you the agility and the tools to make your network as an enabler of your business outcomes. So the next thing is, what can you connect to these CXP? You can, any type of connectivity, as long as you have a standard way of connecting to those CXPs, you can bring any type of connectivity. That includes IPsec, MPLS, SD-WAN. For SD-WAN, we talked about different SD-WANs that the two enterprises might have. So we have a full marketplace of SD-WAN, where we have all the top SD-WAN vendors as part of the marketplace. So your company A can be with one company, your company B can have an SD-WAN from another company, and they can both be integrated. And what Alkira does here, we take care of all the mundane infrastructure connectivity tasks. And as we spin it up out of the box, establish connectivity to the CXP, but it becomes part of your own overlay. We are not creating a new overlay here. Similarly, you can connect to any, you can extend connectivity to your data centers, colos, any cloud service provider that you have, or the companies that you're acquiring have can connect to the same CXP, and then the remote user. So it gives you the unified connectivity option across the board. But now the question arises that since I'm acquiring two companies, I don't want to basically leak routes or basically have these companies share routes, because there may be a lot of challenges since the companies were different. There may be overlapping IP address space and all that. I may not want to share access between all of the networks across between or between the
Mhm.
companies. So by default, anything that you connect to Alkira will be part of a different segment. So essentially, these companies that you are acquiring can again be dedicated into their own segment. And you could have a shared segment that you can build and just leak routes that you need into each of these segments based on the acquisition that you are doing. So everything from the get-go, any connectivity that you're bringing in can be its own isolated route domain, its own VRF from the get-go. And then in terms of feature and functionality, this is an extremely feature-rich CXP that meets any enterprise-grade requirements, and that's why we are so popular with a lot of big enterprises, right? So it has enterprise-grade routing. You can any routing related enterprise use case you have, we can solve it because because you can leverage BGP. You have this inbound outbound policy. You can match on everything. You can alter the routes and meet your outcomes related to active standby connectivity and all that. And since you are acquiring these companies, again, the chances are they may have overlapping IP address space. You have a full suite of carrier grade NAT services like source NAT, dynamic NATs, port address translations, VRF support and segmentation we already talked about. You can selectively route leak. We call that feature as resource share, which is one of the most popular features that our customers are using it. And then a single pane of glass from a monitoring and visibility perspective, the troubleshooting tools. And then on top of it, the security icon that you see on the CXPs, these are our third party service integration. We have integration with all the top security vendors. You can deploy the firewall of your choice, and Syed will go through the customer case studies that how they are using it. So it's a full blown networking merger and acquisition
Mhm.
exchange that you can deploy within your network, enabling you with and providing you a unified solution that you can use for all of your acquisition. You can start small, and as you acquire more company, you can add stuff to it. That's the beauty of it.
And then, Ms. Bo, we give customers flexibility to place these exchange points where they want to, right? And ideally, they place them close to users and applications, or users and users.
Exactly, exactly. Yep. So, Syed, enough of my talking. Before we go to you, let's because I think most of the listeners wants to talk, listen to our customer case studies, but there should be a poll question on your screen where a lot of these challenges that we
We actually
talked
did the
about.
poll already, Ms. Ba.
What's that? Oh, there it's already
Probably
posted.
did it already. Yeah.
Okay, I'm behind then. Okay, so over to you, Syed.
No, thank you. Thanks a lot. So let's take a look at a few customer use cases, and then we can take some questions. This particular use case was very interesting that I wanted to highlight. It was not a acquisition from a large company to a smaller company, but it was a merger of two equals. So two equal sized companies coming together, and how do you now come together and have a common network? So what they wanted to do is they wanted to have a phased approach and create a unified network, right? And once that unified network was in place, have a seamless connectivity into this new post acquisition connectivity model with Alkira. Ideally, right, without any hardware dependency, right? And then the last bullet point, if you can pull out, which is the most critical for them, is how do we budget for something like this, right? Because hard to predict how you're going to be growing into this new network of this combined network that we're going to be and that the two companies will come together and build. It could take months, it could take years, but I don't want to have to pay for an environment, a unified network that's built out for capacity, which a lot of times we do, and I get stuck on some process delays that doesn't allow the two companies to talk. So because of that, what this particular company did, is so you had your X corporation and then the Y corporation. These two companies, they had their own siloed networks. All of the things that Misbah was talking about. Notice that X corporation has a different remote users, Prisma, and then the Y corporation had Zscaler. They had their business partners, but now they can create something as small as 100 meg connectivity, a CXP exchange point, right? Completely virtual, no dependency on hardware, no downloading any software, no virtual appliances that you have to manage. You instantiate an exchange. Region, you can pick regions that make sense. It can be one region, it can be two regions. These two locations were close enough where just one CXP was enough, where they created a VRF called New Corp, right, with their firewalls. In this, they've both decided to have a common standard between the two companies that go with like Fortinet firewalls, for example, that was deployed. And now in the interim, they could just stay like this for a few, right, and just use Alkira to bridge the connectivity when needed between the two companies, right? So X Connect and Y Connect that you're seeing here can be used to allow communication between the two companies. It'll do carrier grade NATing if needed to, and establish communication. Now, any new connectivity that's coming in they've decided, all the new remote users are going to be Prisma access, and Prisma now can terminate directly in. Any of my new branches and sites can connect in, all my cloud resources, any of my new cloud workloads can now connect into this new network, as well as our common business partners can also connect into the new network. And then if you build out one more time, Misbah, as Ms. was talking about resource sharing between the common business partners in the new company, we can establish communication, restricted communication between the two. And now what you have is you have the legacy environments that can function siloed. When they need access and they need to communicate with each other, they can use Alkira to communicate with each other. And as a new network is being built, they can establish that connectivity into the CXP, right? And only pay for what they're using. And then when they're done, when everything is migrated off to this new network, they can then sunset their existing locations. So that was a really interesting use case I wanted to talk
So,
about.
Syed,
Mm-hmm.
just from a problem statement, I see Prisma on one side, I see
Yep.
Zscaler, and I see Fortinet in the middle. So I think this is the level of flexibility that we are enabling you guys or the enterprises in this case, right? Whatever the use case, whatever the best fit is, right? You cannot control whether this new company that you're acquiring, what technologies that they're using. And it so cleanly interoperate and integrates that that's where the customer, a lot of our customers sees the value, right? Like completely
Yep.
different solution, competing solutions, all coming together cleanly.
And and don't forget, if you one more animation, Ms. Buff, you can hit one more time. uh, uh, cannot emphasize enough the importance of us offering this as a service. So everything that you're seeing here being built is being built from a centralized SaaS portal. That SaaS portal has a rich UI that if you don't want to automate, no problem. You can use the UI to build the entire environment globally. Or if you want to use our native APIs, you can do that. You can use Terraform. You're welcome to do that. You want to use Terraform for part of the network, you can do that as well. And even as shown here, give your business partners selective access to the portals to see only their connectivity models. And again, the standard that we're building here is not just for one region. These constructs are globally significant. So you instantiate multiple regions, you're not having to go and rebuild this construct multiple times. Okay,
Perfect.
cool. Let's take a look at the next use case. The next use case, this customer actually was very new to Alkira. We just spun up one region with Alkira, and they had an immediate requirement where there was an acquisition in a region that they didn't have any presence in, right? Initial plan, because we were just writing at that time and they couldn't stop this plan. Initial plan was actually build a colo in that region. Right? In this case, it was in Frankfurt, requiring physical hardware, extending their MPLS connectivity. So I had to call their provider to extend their MPLS connection. And because that was an acquisition site, also making sure there's another VRF that's going to be extended between the two to then extend that. So instead of doing that, that was going to cause a lot of delays. Pretty happy with the initial small deployment that you see here. Said instead, since we're already connected to our data centers in our U.S. Headquarters, why don't we just create extend the CXP? If you hit the animation button there, you can see that instead of having to build all those deploy or purchase hardware and get a cage and a colo, they instantiated a CXP in that same region in Frankfurt, created a common VRF, Corp VRF that's extended between the two. And right there at that location, M&A VRF was brought in, was secured, NAT that needed to be taken care of was taken care of. We'll deal with overlapping IP addresses right there, and then traffic brought back into the headquarters. So very easy. Within a week, Alkira component could be stood up and extend between the regions. And again, the connectivity, the backbone build between the two regions is automatic. We build that automatically and extend multiple VRFs automatically between them too.
So, Syed, do you know how much time they were um, uh, envisioning, like without Alkira, in terms of colo, the hardware, because that involves like stretching a circuit to that site, getting the hardware installed, configured, and all that. So, is it like a 6 month project for them? That
Project was in flight before kind of we even started engaging. So it's and it was going to be another probably 4 to 6 months to get everything in place. Right?
wow, 6 months to a week. That's good.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Syed, since you were talking about the customer case studies, the outcomes, why don't you walk us through the key takeaways for this
Yeah,
study?
no, absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, essentially, key takeaways, um, accelerating your M&A with Alkira, right? It's about having a network that has no reliance on hardware, that scales as you grow with it, provides you the ability to have standardization with helping drive security and compliance. A model that can give you any type of connectivity is super important, right? I mentioned earlier in our meeting, we customer, we have built out a whole network, a global network, physical network. But then if you want to now bring on modern connectivity, you can't do it, right? But whereas with Alkira, any modern connectivity types and stuff we keep introducing into our platform, we roll out new features and et cetera every month in our platform. So and that's very critical. So being able to have a network that can support any kind of connectivity. We talked about visibility. As you're having a merchant acquisition, be able to have visibility into what's going on, but also enforce policy and control and troubleshoot in your environment as well. And we touched on the scale as well.
Yeah, that's perfect. Hopefully, this webinar was useful, and we were able to convey the message that you definitely have to stop thinking about M&A as one-off. It has to come under a unified solution, a unified where you take care of all your merger and acquisition. And then if this is of interest, reach us out at sales@alkira.com. Someone from Alkira can definitely help us out and guide you through to try out the product.
Misbah, you actually have a question in the chat here that you may wanna.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
Before I close, I was going to say that. Like, we have few interesting questions and we have 4 minutes, so let's try to address uh, as
I'll read.
many as we can. But you
read.
become the expert. I'll ask you. So one of the question is MPLS an access option to CXPs?
Yes.
The listener's understanding is that we only do IPsec and SD-WAN.
I see. No, no. Yes, it is an option for us to extend your MPLS connectivity or your private connectivity into Alkira, not just IPsec.
Yes, and we are doing it for a lot of our existing customers as well. And it is a first class citizen within our product, as we say, that you can actually have an MPLS connector on those CXPs. Cool. Um, that is an interesting one. I usually don't like to take the competitive question because we want to share our stuff, but like, let's answer it. Is Alkira competing with Fortinet or other SD-WAN solutions?
No, I would say we do not compete with any SD-WAN. We integrate with SD-WAN overlay solutions. So we will offer all the different flavors of SD-WAN of your choice, and then you can seamlessly extend that into Alkira.
Cool. One another question that I can take because of the compliance. So, are you guys GDPR compliant? Yes. So from day one, we have taken compliance very seriously. That includes like SOC 2, PCI DSS for our financial customer, and GDPR too. We do a self-assessment. We have the DPAs that we can provide. On the website you can see the data subject access request and all that. So yes, we follow all the guidelines to be a GDPR compliant solution. One last question, Syed, that I have for you is, since we are talking about enterprise scale, we already talked about that our infrastructure can be horizontally and vertically scalable. How about a route scale? What happens when these 10 companies bringing their routing tables? At some point, are we going to have issues with the route scale? Because cloud definitely has route scale problems.
That's the benefit. No, the answer is no, we don't, because as you mentioned, actually, we will scale our infrastructure horizontally and vertically to meet the customer's need. We've designed it in such a way that we can meet any enterprise grade. We have customers that have over tens of thousands of prefixes per VRF in our system.
Okay, awesome. So I think that's it. We are right on time. I think thank you all for attending our webinar. I hope that this was useful. We'll talk to you again for another topic sometime in future.
Yep. Reach out to us if you need any more, if you have any more questions. Sales@healthcare.com. Thanks, everyone.